our Dynamics integration does several things. The primary thing it does is that it brings in data from Microsoft Dynamics into EX to be mapped into metrics to then be used on leaderboards and gamified. But it also does a few other things. It has a user management component as well as a newsflash component. And I will show all of those. But before we get into it, let's talk about what a user needs to do in order to authenticate Dynamics. The Dynamics integration is found in our integrations section here. And when you click into it, actually, let me go here. If you click into it, you'll see there's a Dynamics integration option. You click that, ignore that, and you'll have a Connect to Dynamics button. From there, it uses a pretty standard OAuth process to authenticate with the authenticating user's login credentials. So anything that the authenticating user has access to or visibility into in their Dynamics login is what we can see as well. That hasn't changed. We have some help documentation on how that authentication process works. So if you have any questions afterwards, I'm happy to share some of that documentation. But when the Dynamics integration is authenticated, the page will look like this. It's divided into 3 sections. There is a settings piece, a create data piece, and a mapping data piece. The settings piece just shows some basic information who authenticated the integration. In this case, it's Fernanda. And you also have the option to reauthorize with either a different user if you want to, or whatever. And you can set the time zone. Now, this is relevant when mapping in time-based metrics. So let's say you're mapping in a daily metric. This allows us to kind of really define what that day start and end is according to the time zone. That's a simple drop-down field, very easy to use. Now, in order to get started, you'll need to go into the create data section and start with creating teams. And this is where we bring in Dynamics users to be added to the EX platform, the EX app. Any Dynamics users that are mapped in will be mapped into available licenses on the EX side. So in order to do that, you click Create Teams, and we are selecting, we'll show any available Dynamics teams that have been created in Dynamics, and we'll bring in all the users that exist within that team. And again, those users will be mapped into any available license on the EX platform. In the scenario where that user already exists, let's say we have a user with the same email address as exists in Dynamics as it does in EX, we simply make that connection. We don't add a new user with the same email address. We just are able to acknowledge that that Dynamics user should be mapped to an already existing user on the EX side. And I already have a few teams mapped, but let's say I wanted to map this team as well. I could click that team and then click Save. And then we'll automatically start looking at those teams in Dynamics and bringing those users over. You'll see here, there's a little sync pending. It shows the last time it synced. This syncs on a 24-hour basis. But if you want to sync new data or bring in new users that you know you've added to your Microsoft Dynamics teams, when this is not running, there's a little sync now button that you can click to fetch new users. Now, the nice thing about the user management piece of it is that if you've added new users to your team or you've removed users from your team in Dynamics, we will reflect that on our side in our app. So new user comes in, we'll automatically put that user into that team on the EX side. If that user is removed from Dynamics, we will vacate that license on the EX side as well. We will also create a team with that same team name within the EX platform. So that's already created for you with those users added to that team. Once you've created teams and you've brought in users, this is where you can actually start mapping in the data or defining the data that you want mapped into your EX platform. So you start off with creating a set of data. Now think of this as like a foundation for mapping in either metrics or setting some criteria for triggering news flashes. So I'm going to give an example of, I want to map in all my closed won opportunities. And I want to map that into a metric to show the amount of sales that a certain team is bringing in. And I also want to trigger a news flash for any closed won opportunity. I want to acknowledge the employees that have made a sale and show that off on the TV channel. So I'm going to start with creating a data set. Now I already have some here, but I'm just going to walk you through the process fresh. We're going to set a data set. This is my demo one. So demo closed ops. And I'm going to select an entity. And this is where you're going to start to see the difference between our old integration and our new integration. We will map in any opportunity that is available, or excuse me, any entity that is available to that authenticating user in their Dynamics org. There's a type ahead. So let's say I'm like looking for anything with the word opportunity in it. You'll see all those opportunities, anything with the word opportunity, we take everything. And this includes custom entities as well. So in this scenario, I want to map in opportunities, and I don't need to add any additional filter criteria, but I could if I wanted to. Like, for example, let's say I only want to look at opportunities where the total amount or the total revenue was over a specific amount. And I could do that by clicking in this filter and picking like revenue, like actual revenue, something like that. And you'll select an operator. So let's say anything that's over $10,000. So greater than, and then put in a value of 10,000. Click that plus, and then you click save. And now you've created this data set. Okay, there it is on the bottom. So once you've created that data set, you can start using it for things. So let's say we want to map in some metrics. You click in the mapping metrics section. Again, we already have some set up for me, but I'm going to start fresh and walk you through the process. You'll click the map metrics button. And so I want to show, let's say these are like, I'm showing all opportunities greater than 10K. So let's say we're going to call this the 10K club. We're going to select a data set, and I want to select the one I just created. So the demo closed ops one right here. And then it reveals all this additional filter and grouping criteria that you need to select. So the first thing we're going to do is select the aggregation type. And it's best to think about this backwards. Like, I want to show all of my, the amount of money that my team is bringing in on a monthly basis. Okay, so we're going to select sum because we're taking the total amount and we're counting all that to show what they're bringing in. But you also have the option to select average or count. So in average, you're like, maybe you want to look at the average deal size. For count, maybe you want to show the number of closed ops that somebody is closing every month or every day or things like that. Those are your different options. So we're selecting sum. And then you have to select a value attribute. So what are we summing? Which field are we summing? So let's say in this scenario, I want to look at the actual revenue. I want to sum that value. From there, you'll have to group by a user type or a user attribute. So in this scenario, we probably want to group by the owner, but you could group by created. Maybe you want to have a leaderboard showing all the new opportunities that people have created. Then you want to group it by created by, but you have a lot of options there for you. And then from there, you need to select the team that we're mapping in. We don't have an all selection here. It's just, you have to select the specific team. And then you're going to select a sync interval. You can sync as frequently as every 5 minutes or every day, really depending on what your needs are for that type of metric. If it's a metric that gets updated frequently, then you'll want a sync interval of a shorter period of time. From there, you're going to map it to a specific metric. You can select an available metric, or you can create a new metric. And I'm just going to select a new metric and call this, again, 10K club. From there, we're going to select the time range. So now this is where I mentioned before, I want to look at all the closed ops that are above 10K for this month. So that's where I would kind of set the filter for the time range. So the actual close date is what I want to look at, and it should equal this month. Your options are today, yesterday, this week, this month, last month, this quarter, and last quarter. Okay. From there, you can add some more filter criteria if you wanted to. Maybe you wanted to add some additional fields like they closed this opportunity and they also sent a thank you note, or anything else that you might want to add in here. Again, we have a bunch of custom fields here, and every filter and every field that exists within these opportunities in Dynamics. So really is up to the user and what their needs are. And then from there, just move this guy, move there, you click save, and we automatically start bringing in that data, and every 5 minutes we'll fetch new data, or every whatever you've just determined as your sync interval will fetch that new data. Okay. From there, if you wanted to, you could also trigger a newsflash. So again, let's say you want to recognize a salesperson anytime they do close an opportunity that is greater than 10K. You can create a newsflash with that criteria by clicking Map Newsflashes. I'm just going to go with what works, which is the 10K club. Call it a newsflash. You can optionally award points for this newsflash type. I'm not going to in this scenario. And then you can select some watchers. So anyone that isn't necessarily going to be triggering the newsflash, but maybe wants to see it in their huddle feed, can select a user there. This is an optional field, so you don't have to select watchers. And then from there, we're going to select a data set. So in this scenario, I'm going to do my demo closed ops. And we have some more criteria that we need to group by.
Quick question, Kathleen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to the points and the optional field there, does that display on news flashes? So say, for example, I do get onto that 10K club, is it going to say you've earned 2,000 points because of this accomplishment?
It doesn't display on the TV channel or the news flash in the feed, but you'll see the points reflected in your profile. And if your company has set it up, you'll also receive an email notifying you that you've received them. Yeah.
So nothing that compounds onto the news flashes.
Correct. Yeah. That's not something that I think we built in points. When we built in points, we didn't add that visual aspect to it from the TV section. So it's something we've heard in the past, and I think something we'd like to do. I just don't have any sort of timeline on when that will happen.
No worries.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so you want to trigger this newsflash. You want it to make an announcement on the TV. And there, you're going to need to select an attribute to group by. So, who's triggering it? Is it the owner of the opportunity? Is it someone that modified it? In this scenario, it's likely the owner. So we'll select owner. Again, you have to select a team. And then you can select some additional filter criteria. So in this scenario, I want the status to equal, 1, because I only want to look at the closed, only the opportunities are marked as 1. And then, very much like our Salesforce or streaming newsflashes, you can create a template for the message that is displayed on both the TV channel and within the huddle feed. So in this scenario, we can say, congrats, big sale, something like that. And then you can say, congrats to select, the owner. Let's see, we can type in owner of that opportunity. Say, hold on. There we go. For closing another big deal. You can also add any other sort of merge field. So you can throw in the amount of the sale. You can throw in any other sort of fields that you might feel are relevant that you want to acknowledge. Really up to the user. And then you click save. Again, you'll need to add this to the channel if you want it to display on a channel, but then you're good to go. And so anytime though that criteria is met, the newsflash is triggered and shows on the TV and is also shown in the huddle feed. Now, a few more things I want to show. In the user section, any user that has been brought over from Microsoft Dynamics will show Dynamics as the identity provider. If you try to delete that user within the EX platform, you'll see a message saying this user was brought in from Dynamics. You need to go into Dynamics and remove that user from Dynamics in order to remove from the EX platform. The teams here, for example, we just created that test team, the QA owner team. These are all teams that were automatically created by mapping in those teams from the Dynamics org. And then one more thing I want to show is metrics. So when you have a metric that is updated from Dynamics, we'll show that data in the last updated section 27 minutes ago via Dynamics. And that is our new snazzy Dynamics integration.